Recording on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Mike Ariza, who we were just talking beforehand, and make sure I don't butcher your last name. And I suppose all things oil and refineries and natural resources are far more in play now, specifically because of Venezuela, but also because of President Trump in office, different changes. And it is kind of funny seeing how many wealthy people's tune around energy changes when they realize that the new form of power, AI, requires a lot of energy. You see the old thing with, hey, get rid of we're not saving the whales anymore. We got AI superclusters. We need energy. It is sort of hilarious how quickly that goes out the window. But Mike, if you could please introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I'm Mike Ariza. Formerly, I was a Navy veteran, worked in the engineering rates, worked at the Chevron Richmond refinery for about a year. And then I transferred over to Exxon. That's the Benicia refinery. It's Valero now, which is shutting down. Um, Also worked down at Flying J in Bakersfield for about 3 years. I started taking interest in this. Initially, I heard Phillips 66 was shutting down. Right now, I'm the senior operating engineer at Chico State University, and I also part-time farm. So I heard Phillips 66 was shutting down, and I thought with gasoline prices in California, that's not good. You know, a refinery shutting down. But then, not too much longer, I heard that Valero was shutting down. That caught my ear, raised 1,000 red flags because Valero is the most efficient refinery in California. There's no refinery in California that's designed like Valero. Um, I knew with Valero going down, um, it was going to create a lot of problems for California. I didn't understand the full scope of it at the time. But now, as a lot of folks are probably aware, I'm working in collaboration with Professor Miche from USC and Assemblyman Ellis from Bakersfield. In our collaboration and just researching into what's been going on, California right now is in an absolutely dire situation. And obviously, 90+% of the population, they have no idea. Our military is in jeopardy right now. Our civilian population is in jeopardy. And with Phillips 66 having gone down, and now Valero is going down, we're in serious trouble.
For peasants like myself, could you explain what the extent I know of about oil is Oil by Upton Sinclair, a fictional book written, I think, 1900, and then Private Empire by Steve Call about Exxon, which is a great book. That's the extent of what I know. Is what is Phillips 66? I know Valero is a company, but are you talking about specific refineries, oil rigs, pipelines, corporations themselves,
Right, right
fields?
now, the right now the danger is the refineries, and this from mid '80s up to 2023, we've lost about 680,000 barrels a day of crude oil production. In other words, refining that oil into jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline. Since 2023, this green agenda, and as I started to research into this, I found out that they converted the Marathon oil refinery in Martinez and the ConocoPhillips refinery in Rodeo. They converted them over to clean fuels. Problem is when you do that is when you take them off of crude oil. Now this is like 360,000 barrels a day of crude oil these refineries used to process. Now they just make renewable diesel, but in that they're not making gasoline, they're not making jet fuel. So when they went down back to 2023, we lost 18 to 20% of the total gasoline production. Production for the state. The state consumes 37 to 38 million gallons a day, by far one of the biggest consumers of gasoline in the world, you know, with one of the largest economies in the world. So right then, just with those two refineries having gone down and converted to renewable diesel, they're not making jet fuel, they're not making gasoline. So again, it's a threat to the civilian population, a threat to our military. Then a combination of the regulations, egregious fines that are being put on these refineries in the Bay Area and Southern California. And then the state announced that the refineries had to keep a certain amount of inventory for like 14 days, I think it was, with tank storage capacity they don't have. They wanted them to build more tanks, which there's no land to do it on, and try to get a permit in California. You're talking years. So 4 days after the governor signed that into law, Phillips 66, the refinery down in Wilmington in Los Angeles, they announced they're shutting down. And it's like a year later. So now they shut down as of October 17th. That took another 147,000 barrels a day of crude oil production offline, gasoline, jet fuel, diesel gone. So now the state is at a deficit of about 32% of its gasoline gone. And then Valero, a few weeks later, announced that they were going to shut down their Benicia refinery. So with Valero going down, that's losing 4.5 million gallons of gasoline a day, 600,000 to 700,000 gallons of jet fuel a day, and diesel gone. Just not shut down for turnaround and coming back up, gone, done. And Valero actually right now is in the process of slowly shutting the plant down completely. So once Valero's down, the state will be making up 42 to 44% of its gasoline from overseas, countries like India, South Korea, Singapore. And that presents numerous problems. First of all, is our infrastructure in the state with our ability to offload fuel. The professor's thinking that we're maxed out right now. The tankers coming in, we can't handle anymore. It's kind of hard to get information on these docks, but just kind of an educated guess, we're maxed out. Valero's going down another 4.5 million gallons a day. And you can run into multiple problems. You can impact that. You can have storms. I cut Valero back a few times because of storms up in Alaska. They were holding up the Alaska North Slope crude from getting to our refinery. So there's a couple of times where I had to cut it back. One time, almost had to shut it down. So if you get a big storm, typhoon, something like that overseas, if you have a problem at the dock, if you have a labor dispute, there was a big cargo ship fire. It was so big at the port of Los Angeles, they pulled the ship away from the port about a month ago. So if that gets damaged, you're down. Leaking pipelines, unscheduled refinery downtimes. Because back in the in 1990, we had 40 refineries. With Valero, with it going down, that takes us down to 7 refineries now that are active in California. So if you have a fire or an unscheduled downtime like El Segundo, the Chevron El Segundo refinery had, and that's almost 300,000 barrels a day. It's a big refinery. That happened about a month and a half ago. There's multiple events that can affect our supply. We don't have more than 12 or 13 days of supply of gasoline, and we have even less of jet fuel. Like Valero's going down. Valero supplies the jet fuel to Travis Air Force Base, which is one of the largest military airlift command bases in the world. We got Edwards. We got the Pacific Fleet, San Diego. And then we supply fuel. People will get into percentages. Okay, we're doing 80% or 88% of Nevada's, fuel. Well, those percentages really, the big picture is they don't really matter. The big picture is Reno will not get gasoline and jet fuel. Vegas will not get it. And we supply pretty much all of Phoenix. So the 3 major cities in those 2 states, they run dry, and they run dry real quick.
If you could excuse my naivety when I get, like red flags, blah, 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 but extremely naive. Does the free market not handle this? Is someone not looking? I mean, it's right. It can't be, you can't, I mean, I don't doubt the stupidity of people, but there's not someone is paying attention to, or this is happening for a reason, or it's getting piped in. Is it just everyone's heads in the sand?
Well, the governor's definitely is, and he's naive. He's disingenuous. You can think about it, Tommy. You got almost half your fuel coming from overseas, from countries like India, from South Korea. So many things can happen. We don't have.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, so many things can happen, and then you run into prices $8, $9, $10 a gallon or more. And then my biggest concern, the reason why I started getting into this after I heard Valero was shutting down, was shortages. And now that I've seen how I got the full scope of our supply and the production, I'm a lot more concerned now than I was then that we could run into real shortages. So we're talking big time civil unrest. Remember the toilet paper shortages? I mean, that was insane. You get, some of these folks, they're looking at their Gas Buddy app or whatever. And so we got gasoline over here. I mean, and keep in mind it's $9 or $10 a gallon now. Then they get to another station and that station's out of gas. So it's much more. In the 70s, we had shortages from the oil embargo. The OPEC countries, this is a totally different animal. We're shutting down the refineries that can produce the gasoline. And once they shut down, once that expertise leaves, it's really hard to start them back up. Valero in particular, Valero is the most complex refinery in the state. If you lose too many of the qualified personnel, especially in the control room, there are not a lot of people on the planet that can restart Valero. So the other refineries, it can be done, but it's still extremely difficult. And you're not bringing it down for a turnaround or a maintenance period. You're bringing it down completely. So it's taking it to the next level. It's like on the fluid coker unit, you're offloading this. It's like a powdered carbon. So you offload it out of the coker reactor, the coker burner, the coker elucidator. Then all that coke in that unit produces goes to what are called the coke silos. And then in normal shutdown, they hold on to it. And when the refinery comes back, that they put that coke back into the coker unit and it starts up. Well, now those silos will be empty and they'll ship that off overseas. So, catalyst, there's all kinds of different things where all these things are in place where you can start the refinery back up. Well, in this case, tanks will be taken out of service, reactors, all this equipment will be completely clean, catalyst gone, coke gone, catalyst gone. And the longer it sits, the harder it is to restart. The longer it sits, the more your possibilities run into problems starting it up, trying to restart it. So that's the danger we're in right now. The military is absolutely threatened. Like I said, Valero supplies Travis Air Force Base with all of its jet fuel. When El Segundo had their fire about a month and a half ago, there was a tanker that was actually rerouted that was supposed to go to the East Coast from the Gulf Coast with jet fuel. It went to Southern California, and they were so short in Southern California, they rerouted some of Northern California's jet production down to Southern California. Well, with Valero down, that rerouting won't be there. That option's not there.
And I don't know if it's just apathy, but is there any method of self-correcting? And by that I mean, like, I don't know, let's say you have a friend who's, whatever, they're drinking too much, or they showed up to work a couple times, and you can tell them, you're like, hey man, they're gonna fire you. Like, I used to work there. Like, they're really not cool about X, Y, or Z, or you haven't paid rent. Like, it's not other, you can get evicted. Like it, and you say all these things to them, and if they're not stupid or just willfully going, yeah, I don't care, at a certain point you go, it's going to correct itself, man. You're gonna hurt it. You're gonna ruin a friendship. You're gonna be, what? You're gonna be fired, and it's happened. It's happened to me at low points in my life where you do get that splash of cold water in your face. You go, oh, I need to show up to this job. I'm 22 and delivering Chinese food. Like, I'm replaceable. Is there not a level of, and I'm not saying it's the right way to go. I'm not saying that there isn't, incredible implications. I'm not making light of any of that, or maybe I am unintentional. Is there not a level of they're going to get smacked and it turns around? I mean, does that make any sense?
Right now, yeah, but right now, no. Valero has taken a 1.1 billion with a B dollar loss to leave California, to shut down and get out.
So why are they doing that?
Because of the California's environmental regulations. They were slapped with an $82 million fine on a unit that makes hydrogen and carbon dioxide. Okay, and this is a classic here. So they fined them this for the hydrogen generation unit, which all refineries have. They have one or two hydrogen generation units. Okay, And the air quality district was also saying that they were emitting carcinogens and reproductive harm agents for 20 years, for like 20 years. Um, but when you look at Benicia, the city, the industrial park around the refinery and the refinery personnel, that unit's been online since 1969, 56 years. There have been no elevated cases of cancer, reproductive harm. There's been nothing with all those people. The city of Benicia is a very healthy environment to live in. But they're citing this, and then this $82 million fine they leveled on Valero. Well, they changed the air district, changed the way the fine was distributed out, so a good portion of it goes directly to the offended community or the impacted community. So a good portion went to Benicia, and then you had the mayor of Benicia who's on the air board. That's like, okay, if there were elevated cancer rates or anything like that in those communities, we would hear about it until we can't stand listening to it anymore. But no, it's a very clean, very healthy environment in that city. The refinery has always been a partner in that city. They've contributed a lot of things to Benicia. Fire equipment. They take Benicia's fire personnel to Texas A&M, and different schools take them to training with them. Help them with their schools. They pay taxes and everything else that everybody else has to pay. And on top of the different, the refinery would continue to try to comply with environmental regulations. One big example was for decades, the refineries, three of the big furnaces would go out the 450-foot tall concrete stack. And that there weren't any type of health problems, downwind of it, but they made them put in a wet gas scrubber. That wet gas scrubber cost them $600 million to put in, but they did it. So these different requirements, that they keep coming up with, they tried to comply with it to the point where Valero just finally said, "Hey, we're done. We're done with this." They have actually, Valero made a press release a couple of days ago stating what's going on. They also stated that their Wilmington, California refinery was going to remain operational. But the question is for how long there, because they've actually wrote off the total value of the Wilmington assets because the economy in California is so terrible. There's a couple of things that people don't realize. Like with Valero, they don't own crude oil. When Exxon owned that refinery, every now and then the refinery might be losing a little bit, margin wise, but you have the upstream, the crude oil production, the midstream, that's the refinery, and then downstream, that's once the fuels are pumped out and it's distributed to the different recipients. Even if the refinery were losing a little money, which from time to time it did back in the past, they were still making millions upon millions of dollars selling their own crude oil to their own refinery. Valero doesn't have that flexibility. I honestly think it's one of the reasons why Chevron moved their headquarters after 140 years to Houston. They left the state, said, "We're done." I think one of the only reasons the refinery is still there because they wrote off like $4 billion in losses in the last couple of years, and that's per Professor Miche. But Chevron owns their crude oil, so the same thing. Like Exxon owned its crude oil, was selling it to its refinery. If the refinery was taking a little loss, they write that off, but they were still making plenty of money by selling their own crude oil. Valero doesn't have that flexibility. Sinclair, a lot of these refineries, these big companies, they don't have that. They get crude oil via pipeline or whatever, but they don't have that flexibility where they're selling their own crude oil and making money off of that. So that's a big thing. Valero's just been losing money hand over fist. And finally, San Antonio just said, "Hey, we're done. We're leaving." And when they made that announcement, the Valero stock went up.
So
It did.
I guess that's kind of how I look at it is was it Germany that, shut down all their oil refineries and now they're buying it from Russia at a certain point, and again, it's not making light of it but at a certain point you see something like California where it's seemingly self-inflicted. It's people are either dumb enough to believe it or the people in charge know that it's not a good move, but it's politically expedient or advantageous or whatever, or they're getting kickbacks from Who? Oh, I mean, you can just go all the way. I mean, is it a foreign nation state trying to subvert it and shit? Whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
amateur study tactics, professional study, supply chains, right? That's what you win a war. And yeah, sure, that's what I would do if I was China. But you don't even need to go that far, or you can, or whatever it is. At a certain point, then it seems like so if there are these red flags and if these corporations are realizing it, the same reason why a lot of movie production moved from California to Georgia of all places is because Georgia was like, hey, we'll
Come
how
on over
many?
here. Yep. We'll take
Hey,
care of you.
what's California charging? 50%. We'll charge you 2%, and then
Yeah.
that's where they got all this stuff. And I
Right.
lived in Georgia. Georgia's not like Hollywood. I mean, it's sunny, but my point is you do kind of hit these points of like, hey man, this thing's happening. And if you're a private corporation, at a certain point, you go, I hope they figure it out, but I got my own fiefdom I got to take care of, and I got to do X, Y. So it seems like California is just kind of going towards the wall, and we're at a point now where you go, all right, well, I hope your airbag works. Isn't
Well, we're
that's
at the
kind of, I
point.
guess how I look at it.
Yeah. Well, we're at the point, and it's to the point where we're at the point of no return. We're pushing almost half our gasoline. It's shipped. A lot of it is shipped in on Chinese Costco tankers and Russian tankers. So think about this too. I see some of these folks around here. I'm in Northern California running around with their Ukrainian flags, and that's fine and dandy, but they don't realize they have no clue that they are actually supply the fuel we buy from India. 40% of that fuel is processed from Russian crude oil.
Yeah, I mean,
So instead of making our fuel here, we're buying it from them, giving India money. They're paying it to Russia. So indirectly we're subsidizing the Ukrainian war. And these, it's like, hey, put your flag back in your garage. Your
so
policies are
so I write those people off as like they're just stupid and they're walking off a cliff and God bless, whatever.
yeah.
Higher and higher up at a certain point you go, you know what you're doing. You're gonna hit the wall, and I hope you're might correct, you might not. Maybe you gotta be smacked every once in a while. Maybe you have to have an oil shortage, and you go, I shouldn't do that. That's I guess how I look at it, and I understand it's an extremely uneducated take, but that's how I look at it. Is
The difference is what first of all, you got these companies, Exxon, Chevron, Valero, they have fiduciary responsibility to
hmm
their shareholders.
well,
Investing money in California, it ain't happening. You're going to take this capital. What are you going to spend it on? You're going to spend it in California, and then you're losing money. You're just bleeding and bleeding. So okay, shut it down.
it was so that's my point. Is like
Yeah.
these corporations are evil. No, they're not. They're extremely efficient. They're looking at this and they're going, we see what's, I'm gonna imagine they have your point of view. They're like, we see all the red flag, but at a certain point where you're like, I don't, I don't get paid enough to do, like, I have to take care of this job. Like, I got to do this now. That's, I guess, how I look at it. Is it seems like California's just flying towards a wall. They're gonna hit it, and it might be that you gotta burn your hand to learn how to stop playing with fire. I guess
No,
that's
the problem is, Tommy, we're there. California, it's been there. We started going there in 2023 when they
sure.
forced those. I wouldn't say forced, but coerced these refineries into converting to renewable diesel. Rodeo ConocoPhillips, okay, that's near San Francisco. That refinery is on target for what they wanted to do for renewables, which is 45 to 50,000 barrels of diesel a day. But one of the managers at that refinery, Assemblyman Ellis, and a few others went over there and did a little tour. One of the managers told Stan that they're losing almost $100 million a quarter, and they're on target. Okay, so they're not making jet fuel, they're not making gasoline, they're making the target of renewable diesel, and they're losing, they're bleeding money out big time. So here's the CEO saying this is unacceptable and unsustainable. So it's when they pull the plug on that. Same thing with that Marathon in Martinez. That refinery did 170,000 barrels a day, and now they're doing 30,000, 40,000 barrels of diesel. There's a refinery, Paramount Energy, Global Energy Paramount. They are 50,000 barrels a day. They started out as a regular oil refinery, probably making 1 million gallons of gasoline a day. Then they converted over to renewable aviation fuel. Well, in the last year and a half, they had a contract with United. It's gone. And Air Products, who was their big partner in this adventure, they abandoned ship. So now that refinery, and they cited environmental regulations and market conditions. Air Products said, "We're out of here. This is not looking good. We're going." So here's another refinery taken offline. It's down, and they're in the same boat as Rodeo. You can't make money doing this thing with renewables. You just can't do it. As a matter of fact, you're losing a lot. And that's how Air Products, I'm educated guess, says they had the same thing going on down there. Say, hey, we're not going to hang out with you. We see what's going on. We're not going to hang out and keep losing money. So, good luck. So now they call that refineries and hot idle. Basically, it's doing nothing.
So other than just complete implosion, and yeah, like anything, like it's broad example, like COVID, it's a lot of this you can't turn this stuff on and off like a light. There are these the
Well, no, you
economy,
can't.
refinery,
Yeah.
even the podcast. Take a year off. I'm like, that's not how it works. 'Cause you have daily listeners that want to know it's continued. It doesn't work that way. The next level, I guess I would look at would be something like national security. I think it was the 70s or 80s whenever the DOJ was trying to break up, I think AT&T, and the Pentagon came in and were like, absolutely not. And we now know declassified because I think AT&T was constructing these things called long lines, which are these buried cables that went physically around cities so that they wouldn't get hit by nukes and would connect all these bunkers for the continuity of government. And it was just like they came in, they're like, I mean, I think it was under Eisenhower, when the U-2 was flying, it had some component or precursor that was also used in
Uh-huh.
bug spray or mosquito repellent.
Yeah.
But the U-2 was classified and no one really said anything. I mean, the corporations knew at the very top because they were spoke to by Richard Bissell, who was Eisenhower's buddy. I'm not smart. I just read a book on this. But the entire thing was like, you just kind of couldn't get mosquito repellent that summer, and no one knew why. So it seems like at a certain point, you do hit the national security thing, and whether overt or covert, a limitation is reached, a barrier is hit, a parameter is established that you can't go past. Wouldn't they be doing that if they're, again, because yeah, I mean, America's whole thing, other than having bases, are supply lines, the logistics, the Defense Logistics Agency, Air Command. The entire thing is about not only can we do it, we can do it every day, nonstop with the fuel. Doesn't that come in at a certain point where they go, you can't stop doing this?
Yeah, we generated we drafted a 10-page brief that was published in DC about 4 months ago. Myself and the economics professor Miche from USC and Assemblyman Ellis. The last page of that says, President Defense Production Act. There's like three different avenues the president can utilize to basically what you need at this point, and we're past that point. So I call it past the point of no return. We need presidential intervention. We need the federal EPA to basically take over the state. The California Air Resource Board, CEC, they need to be pushed back and say, okay, you guys are done with this. The only thing that's going to save Valero right now is some type of intervention. They wrote off like $1.1 billion. So something's got to be done with that. Well, the president would have the authority to work that out with them, say, okay, we pay that back over 30 years or something like that. But from now on, these regulations, these people, you're going to go with federal regulations. This carbob gas that we have to have, there's only a few places in the world that can make it. So here you
Say it
are.
again, the what gas?
It's called carbob. It's super low carbon gas. Okay. If you look back at, you can think about, I was young in the 70s, but I do remember California air quality was terrible back in the 70s. So if you go on a percentage scale, that, just it's arbitrary, say it's improved 90, 92%, 93% improved over the 70s. So a big change since then. And now they want to get this like 1% more. Well, 1% more is going to cripple the economy. 1% more is putting the military right now at severe risk of not having fuel to complete their mission. There's talk like, well, we can do rail cars or truck it. Well, Travis, uses about 200,000 gallons a day of jet fuel. And then if you take one C5 Galaxy transport plane, one KC-10 refueler, you're looking at 90 to 100,000 gallons, one sortie.
Yeah.
And if if you have a situation where, say, something opens up in Taiwan, okay, first of all, we'll ask the Chinese, will you please keep supplying us with our jet fuel while we're defending Taiwan against you? Yeah, that's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then, if you start doing, say, 15 sorties a day, you're burning 1 million to 1.5 million gallons a day. There is no way you're going to truck that to Travis Air Force Base. There's no way. The infrastructure doesn't exist. The trucks don't exist. The tankers don't exist. It has to go by pipeline. And once that main supply is cut off, the Travis is a risk, but it's the same thing. There's one pipeline goes up from Sacramento up to Reno, and then that gets distributed like the Ellis Air Force Base. It will take no time at all. We don't have any real storage capability in California. We'll have maybe 13 or 14 days of gasoline. You get down to 12 days. Price of the gasoline is going to jump $1 to $1.50. And if you don't get it restored in short order, burning 38 million gallons a day of gasoline, and the bases are also using gasoline, but they're big tanks jet fuel. If you don't get it back in short order, then you end up with shortages. And the military can, nationalize, whatever the right term is, fuel from SFO or LAX or whatever, but still that'll run out very quickly. They don't have a lot of storage capacity. They have the whole system of California, because California has no inbound pipelines. It's like a fuel island. So there's no way to get fuel in via pipeline. So California has always been based. It would supply its bases, supply the, LAX and SFO and all these, Sacramento, that they would supply this off of the pipeline network within the state. And the whole premise of California's economy, 8% of California's GDP is based off of refineries. They provide 8% of the GDP. Well, you don't get the other 92% of the GDP if you're having shortages and gasoline's $9, $10, $12 a gallon. The other 90, because oil, you get so many things from oil. Some of the stuff we're using right now comes from oil. Tires, plastics, you name it. Asphalt, that's a big one. So, and people, propane, like here in Northern California, you got a lot of mountains around here. It's propane, refineries make a lot of propane, and once they're down, it's gone. So there's so many things that will just fall. And initially, when I went to Stan Ellis's office in Sacramento, I showed up and he asked me, "Why are you doing this?" And I drafted a brief of my own of what knowledge I had at the time. And he said, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Because I see a strong possibility of the largest economical collapse of any state in the history of this country coming in summer of 2026. And that was before I knew everything I know now. Even more so now. We are so vulnerable. Our military is so vulnerable. And it's just common sense. The governor, he is so disingenuous, and I'll just flat out say he's lying. Absolutely lying. He does not have control over the weather. He does not have control over international events that may occur. The docks, the ships, the tankers. Your Russian tankers bring in our gasoline and jet fuel. Chinese tankers bring in our gasoline and jet fuel. He doesn't have control of any of that. Okay. But he's saying, "Oh, that's no problem. Don't worry about it. It's nothing to look at." And you got between myself and Stan and the Professor Miche, we got 120 years of very extensive experience in this industry. Stan started with, down in oil wells like 50 years ago, down in Bakersfield, Kern County. And he's built his own company. He's just a guy, he's a phenomenal entrepreneur, just overall a good guy. And then the professor, he's been studying this industry since 1973. The economics of it. He's a USC professor. And then you got me. I ran the Flying J refinery. I ran the Valero refinery. So I got the practical flying the plane experience. But you got the governor said, "Oh, there's nothing to look at here." No, you're absolutely lying. You got 120 years of experience here saying we are in danger. We've been in danger. We're at an unprecedented level of risk like no state has ever been in the history of this country. And one thing about California, Nevada, Arizona, if we crash and our military is at risk and our military is grounded, that's a risk to the entire country. You take the West Coast out, which is very easy to do because you can't make your own fuel. That's a risk to the entire country. That's why everybody, East Coast, everywhere, people need to be made aware of that because this is a big deal in California. This governor, he's flat out lying. Period.
So then there has to be something we don't know. And that doesn't necessarily mean the analogy I was going to use was when Harry Truman was a senator or vice president or whatever, he was one of his things was fighting fraud, waste, and abuse during because, we were churning out everything for World War II and there was, people cutting corners and making money and he would, whatever, you're selling broken rifles or faulty boots. And the thing he found, I
Mm-hmm.
think was in Tennessee, is he was like, yeah, all this electricity's going there, all this stuff's going there, and nothing's coming out. And he's like, I think I found something big. And what he found was part of the Manhattan Project that he knew nothing about. And I think General Groves came to him and was like, hey, you're doing great work with the whole fraud, waste, and abuse thing. This ain't
But
it.
but
This
leave
ain't
this
it.
alone. Yeah.
And he was like, noted. And I think he even asked FDR, and FDR was just kind of like, shut your mouth. And he's Raj. And he became president. He didn't even know about the Manhattan Project for 13 days after he became president. Now, I don't think that's the best analogy because that implies a grand plan for a greater effort that eclipses a smaller thing and it's ultimately for good and need to know. I don't think that's a great example, but it's the closest thing I can maybe come up with is there's something we don't know. It's there is stupidity. There's absolutely stupidity. There's treason. There's traitors. There's people doing it because they want to get into office. But at a certain point, when
Mm-hmm.
someone raises the flag like you, so I imagine Schumann went there. He's like, no one sees this, and maybe he was right. Maybe no one else caught on, and he did the right thing. But eventually he brings it up the chain, and they're like, no, no, you found it, but shut your mouth. Noted. At a certain point, when it's been made clear, when I would imagine Defense Logistics Agency or Air Mobility Command, they're very aware of energy flows inward and outward. There is something we don't know. And that, again, that does not imply that it's good, that it's a higher level chess game. It doesn't exclude that, but there's something we don't know. That kind of seems we're doing everything, we're mapping out all the pieces we have, and something's not there. There's something we don't know. There's that's the best, which is a pretty stupid, worthless conclusion. There's something we don't know. It
Well, the
okay.
map in a lot of ways is actually very clear. My understanding is there's an EO on Trump's desk.
Okay.
The timing he's waiting for, I'm not sure. Perhaps for California to suffer some, I don't know.
So that's what I mean is
But
there's
but
some
but we
political or literal
it's
capital or
political.
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, with the state, it's all the green, it's all the EVs, it's all that just nonsense. Um, they predicted the CEC way overestimated the amount of EVs that would be purchased. Here's the governor in his state of the state address a few days ago, like last week, talking about how EV sales in 2025 were way up. Well, they were way up, especially towards the last like October, because the federal credit, the $8,000 credit went away. So the last 2 months of 2025, EV sales cratered. Okay, we're not anywhere near the amount of gas that is being consumed in this state. They way over projected how much it was going to be reduced by. It's barely went down. It went down during COVID, then it shot right back up. And then jet fuel consumption, even the CEC, they're projecting jet fuel consumption is going to go up 20% in the next 10 years. Well, you make jet fuel from refineries, which makes you even more and more vulnerable. Um, I my biggest thing right now, Tommy, is I see where we're at. The three of us see where we're at, and others. Congressman Fong and there's others that see this. But from knowing what they do and how they do it, and in working with the professor, working with Assemblyman Ellis, I see where we're at right now, and like I said, if you let the refineries, a couple of the refineries have already been out of crude oil production for a couple of years, Marathon and Rodeo. Phillips, it needs to be turned back around and started up. And then we need the only thing is going to save Valero is for Trump to come in and say, hey, we're going to take care of this. You don't have CARB will not affect you anymore. The CEC is done with the California Energy Commission. No more effect on you. You're going to work under federal EPA purview. And what can we do? And Trump is a go-getter with especially economy and business. What can we do? Work with Bessent, say what can we do to help keep you here, and and help you thrive like you used to. You think about it this way: Valero bought the refinery in 2000 for $826 million. Okay, they bought it. They bought it from Exxon. And there were some days when I was running that control board where we were pushing $3.8 to $4 million a day. And that for a pipeline company that bought their first refinery, that was just fantastic. And Valero has expanded. They bought more refineries, which is what you want in America. Businesses to thrive and businesses to grow. So they went from making 826 million or buying it for $826 million to taking a $1.1 billion loss now just to shut the damn thing down and get out of the state and say, hey, we're done with you. And there's the statement of, well, the Wilmington refinery is going to remain open. The first comment the professor made was, yeah, for how long? Because they totally wrote it off too. So we're thinking the end of this year, first part of next year, they're going to say, hey, by the way, Wilmington's shutting down too. And you've had like CEO of Chevron has recently made a statement that California has been at war with the refineries for the last 25 years, with the oil industry in general for 25 years. And, he made something to a statement, something to the effect of, well, we're not saying we're going to go, but, things are not looking good. And that's, no doubt. Phillips 66 is down and Valero's going down. So things are definitely not looking good. And again, I already said this, but I think one of the reasons why Chevron hasn't shut down their refineries is because they own oil. They own the crude oil. If I think if it wasn't for that, California would be we'd be walking.
And again, even with the $1.1 billion loss, that is done because on a bigger picture, it's still the least worst option. Maybe not profitable, but it's a sunk cost and get rid of it now or get rid of it later at more money. So,
Well, they just keep seeing bleeding. It's not changing. The restrictions are getting
well,
ridiculous.
correct.
The taxes, the carb, the that credit cap, doggone it, the
Carbon.
word, carbon. The carbon tax. All the trade, cap and trade, all these different things. You got. It's like I had talked to one guy from Fox News, interviewed me briefly a little while back, and he was talking about the ethanol. The governor's like, well, we'll go to the ethanol 15, and then the gentleman says, well, some of these Democrats are saying, well, the other states are, they're using it. Most of them are using it. And I stopped it there. It's like, you can't compare us to the rest of America. The rest of America has no problem with crude oil production. The rest of America has no problem with refineries. Thanks to President Trump, the rest of America, and that's why California's prices haven't gone up right at the moment. But the price of crude oil is down like 25% since he took office. So the rest of the country, with no oil production, with no refinery processing problems, the rest of the country is enjoying the benefits of that. But California, it's about to go off a cliff. When Valero goes down, another refinery is going into shutdown for maintenance for 45 days, one of the PBF refineries. And then we're going into our famous summer blend. So winter, it will tend to get a little cheaper. Summer blend, the actual volume of gasoline is reduced because they can't blend butane in the gasoline. So we're going to have Valero completely down, Phillips 66 completely down, PBF going into turnaround in the second quarter, and then our summer blend. So at that point, we're going to be in big trouble.
So it's either on a relatively slow motion collision course relative to it's not a corporation that, they turn every, whatever, 3 months, 4 months. You're gonna have people leaving, which they have slowly, right? Since I mean, 2020 till now, just the general exodus to other, primarily Texas, but regardless, they're leaving. It could be that we're seeing something that to us seems like it's taking eternity, but over the life of a superorganism, which you could say is a state, it's happening slowly where people are just leaving. And as the prices go up, more and more people will leave who can't afford it. The people that will stay are probably people who can afford it and don't think twice of it, and or they can't afford it, but it's politically advantageous to say we're gonna, stop burning whatever. And as long as they
Yeah.
can get it somewhere else, it's plug your car, it's I don't use oil. It's electricity. It's like, well, we'll just plug it into the grid. But even for them, some people are truly stupid and think that it has nothing to do with coal. Other people know it does, but they like the brownie points and whatever. It's so we're either going to see that continue in, again, relative slow motion, and it might take another 10, 20 years, or, and I think this is probably more what it is, there's something political going on, and it could be Newsom, it could be Trump. I'm gonna make an example of him. It could be Newsom. I'm gonna hold out, and whatever it is, no matter what it is, it doesn't seem like a very good thing to do. But I guess I shouldn't superimpose that onto politics. Maybe, I mean, maybe it's maybe they're pretty confident a giant war is breaking out, and China's not going to keep funding us. So if I were the national security apparatus, I might say keep buying it from other countries because they're going to turn the spigot off eventually, and then we can tap into all of our stuff because it's not going away. It's all still there. We're just not using it, which is stupid. But if you're just purely looking at it from like a military survival point of view, you might say keep giving them U.S. dollars because money ultimately is just fake. We'll just print it. When war breaks out, we'll still have the actual oil, right? And
Well,
that
that's the
is
problem. That's the problem. We don't.
okay.
It goes
So
away.
then,
We don't have it. We don't
okay,
have it. That's the problem. It's
okay. So
not.
then
We
that
don't
one
have
goes
the
out.
storage,
Then that one goes out the window. No, I
and
mean, I
and
mean,
and
I
the
mean it.
military is grounded. That's the problem.
So
That's the
then,
biggest problem.
so then that's out the window.
It's out the window. That's why I said that governor is so disingenuous. They said he acts like he's God. You don't have control over all these things. We don't have the storage. We don't have pipelines coming in to the state to make it up somewhere else in the country. Um, Fuel has to come in on what's a Jones tanker, but even then, getting it here, our docks now are Port of Los Angeles. They're limited. They're pretty much, the professor's pretty convinced they're at limit now with what's coming in without Valero being fully down and without the other refinery going for turnaround. See, back in the day, like with PBF, one refinery's going down first quarter for turnaround. That's a maintenance period, 40, 45 days. Then in second quarter, the other refinery's going down. And the refineries would set it up to where they didn't all go down at once.
Sure.
So there wasn't a big bump in the fuel supply. Well, now those refineries are down permanently. They can't come back up. So when PBF first quarter goes down, PBF second quarter goes down, prices are going to go through the roof. The professor, with the three of us, we're projecting a minimum of like $8.50 a gallon, and the people that these other folks claim to care about, they're the ones that are going to suffer the most. The ones that can't afford it. They
Yeah.
have to decide to be able to drive or go get food or, and that's the thing. This has been going on. California has been paying 50% or more than the rest of the country for a long time. That's what caught me initially was, man, we're already paying enough. Phillips 66 is going down. Then I heard Valero was going down. It's like, what is going on? This is crazy. Once they're down, they're down. We can't get it from anywhere else. If someone cuts us off, we're cut off. And we will run out of fuel quick. We'll run out of gasoline real quick. And the military is right now. That's the problem is right now, if something happens, these scenarios will take place. It's going to kick in. Shortages, prices through the roof, $8, $10, $12 a gallon or higher for gasoline. Same thing with jet fuel. And you'll be limiting flights out of our major airports. The military will take the jet fuel, but if it gets really bad, you get a combination of a couple of events, like some theater in the world opens up, say we have some storms somewhere. You just don't know. And Newsom, he's so disingenuous. He does not have control over all of these factors. I mean, basically, and the prices. The shipping. You're paying for the shipping. You're paying for the production in India, South Korea, or Singapore. We're paying for all that. We advocate total control of our fuel supply, total control of our the prices that we pay, all that stuff. We're advocating to other countries, and you don't know what's going to happen with that instead of making it here like we should be doing. So it's just totally crazy. It's beyond. And yeah, right now something happens right now, we're in trouble. We got 33% of our gasoline, give or take, is being imported from overseas. Valero pushes it to 43, 44%. And jet fuel, we're at about 30% importing right now. Some of it is actually coming from China, not just being shipped from China, coming from China. It's like the professor wrote that in there about, yeah, well, can you keep sending us our jet fuel while we're defending Taiwan against you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm just playing devil's advocate for the sake of it. I mean, technically, we used titanium from the Soviet Union to build the SR-71 Blackbird, but that was done through 10 or 11 front companies operated by the CIA. But that's
Yeah,
such a niche. By the way, I don't even think this is a reasonable explanation. Sometimes I just pretend I'm a lawyer and I have to do the devil's advocate. So, like, this is my bullshit argument. Okay, that did work, but it was for an incredible piece of national security, the SR-71 Blackbird, against our greatest foe, and God knows how many resources we threw at the CIA doing that. Okay, fine, it
yeah.
worked. Yeah, some people do get struck by lightning twice. It's not a good precedent, and it's not probabilistic, which tells me that from whatever we've talked about today, is that it's a political reason. Then nothing else seems to add up. Certainly not. Doesn't seem like the Valero is making money off this. It certainly comes down to a political reason, and that doesn't justify it. Just to make that, just like underline that, that doesn't. Oh, Trump's just trying to. I like Trump, but some people don't. Whatever. Maybe you like Newsom. Whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't maybe Newsom say I'm going to use this to push back against Trump and okay, orange man bad. Trump says I'm going to use this to own the Dems and whatever. The thing that happens, the I told you so, that doesn't necessarily mean it was good. It could be like, yeah, well, California is destroyed and, we don't have a western part of the United States and that destroys our ability to do power projection and thus the geopolitical chessboard is reshaped for the first time since 1945. That all might
Right.
happen. I'm not even saying that that's good or it seems objectively bad, but just purely if we just had to look at this as the doctor who's telling you what's wrong, regardless of your opinion on it. This is, and sometimes what the doctor says is inoperable, 3 months, get your affairs in order. That sucks, but it's still the closest thing to reality that they can do. It seems like it's that. It's either Trump or Newsom, and that's what it is. And
Yeah, that's
it's
the thing. That's the thing about California, and it's not. It's so self-induced, and it's so preventable.
yeah,
It's
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 suicidal.
it's it's totally self-induced. I have to every now and then someone's throw up, oh, Trump said Trump nothing. Okay, well, prices are down right now. Yeah, that is because of Trump and because we're in the winter blend. But this refined Valero's going down, PBS going into turnaround. We're going into the summer blend. Prices are going to go through the roof. Probably 3 or 4 months, they're going to go through the roof. And again, if we have any type of interruption, that's all self-induced. The danger we're in, the
Sure.
unprecedented history of any state in this country, danger that we are currently in is all totally policy self-induced here in California.
Then it's at this point, it's you do have a moral obligation, right? To if somebody like yourself has expertise or you do have to say, hey guys, something bad's happening here. I gotta make noise. I gotta because that's on my conscience. Okay, and you do the whole running up the flagpole. Nobody comes back with the whole Truman thing, like, hey, don't. This is. And you're like, oh wow, this is somehow this has to do with us getting to Mars before noted, whatever.
Right, right.
You have all those obligations to do all those things. I don't, I mean, at a certain point, it doesn't seem like it's fraud, like they're purposely tanking their own thing. That doesn't seem like corporate warfare. At a certain point, you go, you know, you're going to the wall. You know that you're going, everyone's saying you're going to the wall. The cops are saying you're going towards the wall. The guy next to you in the car jumped out and said, I think you're going to the wall. And the person driving is fully aware, understand English. They can hear you. They're not drunk. They're going, I know I'm going to. At a certain point, you go, I mean, let's get something out of it. Hey, guys, watch this. Learn what not to do, which is
Right.
cold, but it
Well,
seems
the
like that's
thing,
where we are.
yeah, and the thing is, you got to look at his track record. Okay, look at all the people coming across the border. Look
Yeah.
how the debt the state is in. This high speed rail. My wife took my brother back home as he had a advanced stage 4 cancer. Okay, and he wanted to go home, so we got him on a plane, got him home, and they got their high speed rail in China. It's one thing, they definitely have a good organization there. And I asked her, I go, yeah, I said, honey, how long, what time is your ticket? I was worried because my brother was on a 14-hour flight, brother-in-law's. And she sends back to me, they are so polite. She sends back to me, my husband, the train for Guilin leaves every 30 minutes. I was like, okay, well, never mind. But look at our high speed rail. Look at the billions that have been poured into this thing. I drove through Fresno going to my first meeting at Stan's office in Bakersfield, and it's gone nowhere. Very, very little expansion. Not a rail laid. Look at the Palisades fire. Look what happened there. This governor has a track record, absolute track record of. So, I mean, I think if they do this investigation, I think he's going to make Tim Walz look like Slim Pickens for the amount of money that has been gone, have been taken, stolen, misused, abused. And this thing with the refineries is worse than all of those things put together. To knowingly and willingly put all your citizens at the level of risk that they currently are at, to willingly put our military in this situation, knowing, that this is what's going on, and not having the courage or the fortitude to make the decisions that will fix this problem, to just keep going down the same track, is just, I don't even have words for it.
Well, let's use those as a microcosm. Let's use the high speed rail. The argument is we're a bigger country, and it's that forget all of that. Just let's hyper focus on the high speed rail. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they've got the resources. Yeah, railroads aren't new. Right? The engineers exist. Okay, yeah, it's not some forgotten technology. They've got the funding. Yeah, and it's well, then why isn't it happening? Are they stupid? Some people are, not everyone. Is it, do they not know what's going on? Are they clueless? No, they know. Is this not a sore? Is this not, hey man, rails normally cost 1/100th of that? No, what do we all look at? Do we all go, there's no, we all go, well, it's fraud. It's clearly it's fraud. It's slush fund. It's laundering. That applies to, I think, the oil thing. So, there is a form of profit somewhere. It doesn't necessarily need to be financial. There's
Mm-hmm.
something. And so what do you do when you look at that? You examine all of it. You go to the rail people. You're like, hey, and they go, yeah, we know. And you do all this stuff. Eventually, you go, oh, the next best thing for me to do is to go, well, I'm leaving. I don't want any part of this. God bless.
God
That
bless you. Good luck.
God bless and good luck, man. And it seems like that's it. It's we're coming up on an hour, but I'll wrap it up with the maybe a better analogy and like Chernobyl, right? Chernobyl
Mm-hmm.
happens, the RBMK reactor, whatever explodes, there's the leak, and they're all going, there's this much radiation, and they're going, no, there's not. And that normally worked, and so it just no, there's not. And if they disagree, shoot them, right? And he keeps going up the chain of no, nothing's happening, can't happen, blah blah blah.
Nothing happening here. Yeah, nothing to
Yeah, yeah,
see.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that can work for some things. Physical reality eventually throws its fist through the bubble you've created. And what that meant was strontium 90, calcium 90, all these radioactive isotopes were then getting detected all over the world to the
Right.
point where you couldn't hide it. And it's just what it is. That's what this is. Physical reality is we can outlaw summer. Trump can sign an executive order banning sunburns. As a white Irish guy, I would like that.
Yeah.
Why is Tommy in the hospital? He got like fifth degree burns. I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah.
At a certain point, reality comes flying in.
Right.
That's the best conclusion I've reached after this hour is someone's doing something to their own benefit, seemingly political, and the bubble's going to pop, and it's going to pop with a supersonic shockwave. The end.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%.
You'd almost rather you look at this stuff and then you look back at like Gilded Age tycoons that everyone said were awful, and you start to yearn for them. You're like, at least they ran it. At least it worked. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
is it were working conditions good in slaughterhouses and steel mills? Probably not. They got it done. At least that was the evil. You kind of look at that and you go, man, I think I'd much rather a robber baron, Vanderbilt, Carnegie guy doing the whole thing. And I think they're awesome, but most people don't. Is at least that worked, you know? I don't know, man. Do you have any socials or any websites where you want people to find you?
We got started up at www.gascrisis.org. We just started that one up. I don't have a problem sharing my email either. Whatever, flood it in.
Yeah.
This is too important. This is too important not to continue to get out as many folks as we can. So they know what's coming. My personal email is Michael Ariza, MichaelAriza, the number 42 at gmail.com.
If you could email me the link to that website, and then I'll put your email in here, and I'll
Copy
give
that.
you after this. I'll give you my number. We'll set up another one if you'd be so kind. And yeah,
We'll
man, it's
set up another one too, Tommy. And the professor's really he just started.
oh yeah,
They just started back up at USC, but even if it's just with Stan too. Stan's got just his unique perspective. I mean, it's obviously similar to mine, but his he's an entrepreneur. The guy's just he's really achieved a lot for himself, and yeah, they're both just really good guys. I can't help but express my gratitude and just as far as they're concerned, I truly feel blessed because when I started this, I didn't have any contacts. I had I'm just me. I'm working at Chico State. I'm a farmer. And then I just decided one day to generate. I said, okay, I'm not getting much traction. I'm going to generate my own brief, which was like 7 pages long. I made 10 copies. The last person I saw at the state capitol was Stan Ellis. And then he scheduled a meeting. It was kind of funny. I saw Professor Miche on a couple of videos, and I thought, man, that guy knows what he's talking about. I'd love to meet him one day. And then Stan calls me up 2 weeks later, says, hey, Mike, you got to come down to Bakersfield. They're like, yeah, what's going on? I said, no. He's like, I'll pay your expenses. I need you to come down here. And we're going to have Professor Miche. And I'm like, oh,
all right.
okay. And so that's where we drafted that 10-page brief. So, yeah, I'll send you that. I'll send you that .org. And there's a lot of information on that. You can see our initial 10-page brief that started the whole chain of events. There's a lot of good information on that.
As always, I finish these shows with one more anxiety in my mind. I do so many shows, Delta Force guys, nuclear engineers, and I always have to like finish it. And I'm like, I gotta slow it down. So, but dude, it's great to meet you. Thank you for the time out of your day. I will send you this episode. You send me those links. We will set up another show. And yeah, man, pleasure talking to you.
You too, Tommy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I really thank you for your time. Guys, thank you for Hey guys, real quick, you guys know Basil Baz, ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children. I just did a fundraiser with them the other day, and I'm going to put this on to every episode I do. They are special forces veterans who physically rescue trafficked children. They have since 1993. They have a 100% success rate. They do not take salaries. They all have day jobs, and they literally rescue sex trafficked children. Donations to them are a tax write-off. I get nothing from them, and they have not asked me to put this on. I've included this little clip on episodes for the last year or so, and I'm just re-recording it because I just got to meet him just 2 days ago for future. It's November 25th, 2025, but this will be on every episode now for the next year. And there is nothing better you can do with your money. Um, if you can support them for even $5, please do that. It is, they truly are doing the Lord's work, and I think we all have an obligation to do that. Thank you so much.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a blue room soon. www.blueroom.com.
Hey guys, a huge sponsor of the show is Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. Clayton lives down in Georgia. He's been on the show before. It's actually nearby where I went to college. They are a huge sponsor of the show. They give me some money every month, even when I don't sell enough to warrant that paycheck. Meaning that the show is not free. It's just that it's free for you. If you guys need prepper food, or if you're just interested in supporting the show, I'd please ask you to go to the link in the description. Go to Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, promo code TPC for 10% off. 72 servings per pail, 25-year shelf life. These things are, they double as dumbbells. Pasta Primavera, cheesy potato soup, mac and cheese, loaded baked potato casserole, chili mac, cheddar broccoli soup, cheesy lasagna, teriyaki rice. You can get banana chips. There's also raspberries, strawberries, and apples. There's a bunch of freeze-dried fruit, or you can even get seeds to plant your own garden. It's not a bad thing to have. It's like gold or ammunition. It's a good thing to have. It's a bad thing if you have to use it, but it's good. It's good to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. So that's what I'd say. And if you just want to support the show, please go to the link in the description. Please go support them because they support me. Thank you so much, guys.